Hello everybody, my name is Raymond Jett with Arcade Components, and I'd like to invite you to follow me along on a little adventure of restoration. Behind me are a couple of Sol 20 computers that I've been entrusted with the restoration of, and with the expectation that at least one of these will be ready and on display at VCF Southwest in June 2025 at UT Dallas. Now, these systems are in pretty rough shape. They were a real, not barn find, but a shed find. They were in a storage shed and pulled out, and they show it. Now, I'm going to show you a little bit more about that here in just a little bit, but first a little bit of a background on these. Now, these two computers came from a gentleman's estate. He was a software developer and wrote software for the Sol 20s and distributed it on tapes and diskettes. Now, let's talk a little bit about the background of the computers and the company itself. Introduced in July 1976, the prototype was shown on the cover of Popular Electronics magazine. Now, the finished product would end up having a numeric keypad instead of the built-in cassette deck, but they wanted to get this out. They were the publishers of the magazine were very excited about this particular computer. Now, it came with 3 different flavors available at introduction: the Sol PC, the Sol 10, and the Sol 20. Now, the Sol 20 sold so well that they basically discontinued the other models. And they came with 3 different software loads you could have on personality modules, which is different than, say, for example, an Altair or an MSI computer back in the day, where you had the switches where you had to manually load in a bootloader before you could load something in software, or program it onto an EEPROM so that you'd have a monitor ROM already on the system yourself. But this came from the factory with that load. So you had one that would be just basically a monitor, another one that had a monitor and some capabilities with loading and saving cassette software, etc. Now, these could be purchased as a kit, assembled and tested, or you could send them a letter with a little bit of money to cover shipping and handling costs, and they will send you a copy of the schematics, which is huge for back in the day if you want to try and wire wrap your own PC, which was another thing that was popular to do back in the day. But the cool thing about this particular machine is that it was already assembled, already there, keyboard, video subsystem, the processing, the memory, everything in one unit. You didn't have a separate keyboard hooked into a separate input board on an S100 bus system, or hooked to a separate terminal, or with a video card that later came out from processor technology for the S100 bus system, so that you could have a video terminal built into your S100 bus system. Now, the Sol 20, another neat thing about it was it had a 5-slot S100 backplane, so you could use your S100 bus cards in it, which were very popular at this particular point in time in the computer history. Now, when they brought out the Sol 20, they brought out a whole catalog of things, and it was not just the computer. They had disk drives, they had software, they had accessories and peripherals. They contracted with a TV manufacturer to build a monitor. So you could have a switch on the back, you could use it as a TV, flip a switch, you've got your video input so that you can hook up your computer to it and use it as your display. They had software that they targeted to different areas of different application verticals: art, law, medicine, education. And they did this through contracts with third parties. You have a joystick and an analog input card. That analog input card could also be used for pulling in data from machines and processes. So if you wanted to use it in manufacturing or laboratory use, you could. They had a printer for it. They had cassettes. They had the discs for the disk drive, predetermined, or not predetermined, but supplied software for it. And we'll get into some of that here in a bit. Now, one Sol 20 equals 3 computers. You know, they were talking about having a complete system in order to do this. And they had 3 different basic flavors of this. They had a System 1, System 2, and System 3. And we'll get into those here in just a moment. Now, the solution chart was cool because with this, they give you some ideas of some of the things you could do. Recipe storage and diet planning for home use. You've got the basic 5 language, various games you can load. For the learning machine, you had focal language, you had basic. You could use this for writing your thesis, doing interactive learning programs. The laboratory monitor, where you have the pattern recognition, instrumentation control, digital analog to digital converters. With this, you had basic, focal, and you had an assembler that you could go in and use. The legal library with the disk systems and being able to save large amounts of data, going and looking through law libraries, etc. Now, the Helios disk system was really interesting. Now, they had a disk system that they were going to use, and then suddenly that manufacturer was purchased by somebody else and they wouldn't sell them the drive, so they came out and went with a different manufacturer. But this one had a servo-controlled head positioning system and 2 different drives running off of this. So you had hard sector disks with 384K storage per disk, with a 10 millisecond track-to-track stepping time, which is majorly fast for back in that day when you're looking at those large disk drives. And another cool thing they had, which predated Apple by many years, was motorized disk ejection. Now with this, you had extended basic, you had an assembler, you had pilot, Fortran, focal, so several different applications you could use with this in order to write your own programs, save data to the disks. Now they had great marketing, so they had nice product slicks, they had a system that was easy to expand, and they had product slicks like this one that would answer the most obvious questions people are going to have about it. They had a decent setup with maintenance and service people scattered across the United States in over 50 cities, and factory support. They had manuals, factory drawings, support team. They had everything back in the day. And with it, you could get 3 different flavors of the system. The Soul System 1, which you could buy as a kit or burned in and tested, with the Solos personality module, 8K of memory, the 12-inch video monitor, the cassette recorder, basic on tape, and all the cables necessary to hook it up and have it running. Soul System 2 is the same, but it had more memory, 16K. Soul System 3 had not only more memory with 32K, but it also came with the Helios disk system and disk basic. They also had a set of dealers around the country, and the one that was local to me is the Micro Store that was in Richardson, Texas. It's no longer. I'm having trouble finding out a whole lot of information about this. I've reached out to somebody that I believe had a hand in the store back in the day, and I'm waiting on them to get back to me. So whatever I can find out, I will include in a future video. Now, like everything else, it's going to come to pass. So what happened to processor technology? You could think of it as the death by 1,000 cuts, but basically it was lack of new products and innovation. So they ignored the industry trend of moving to adopt CP/M as the disk system. So they missed out on WordStar, WordSpell, all the different types of software that was all the rage there under CP/M. And new competition with vastly more locations. So when you stop and think, we get into 1978, what happened? You had Radio Shack with the TRS-80 Model 1 being released. And you had all the Radio Shack computer stores across the country, over 300 outlets, where you could go in and see it, touch it, feel it, get a liking for it, and buy it, and walk out the door with it. Now, you also had problems with they were slow to adopt color. They didn't bring out the color video card for this system, and when Apple II came out, it stole everything away from them. The ability to do the color was huge. They also had poorly written contracts. They contracted with North Star to get a version of BASIC written. Well, North Star turned around and sold that BASIC as well. So Processor Technology sued them. They were thinking, hey, this was supposed to be exclusive, but contract wasn't quite written clear enough so they went to court over it, and processor technology ended up eventually losing. Now, they also had a vengeful competitor in North Star that released a 5 1/4 disc subsystem for the Sol 20 and a patch for that would allow the Sol 20 to run CPM. Add into it the unreliability of the Helios disk systems and the lawsuits that came from those that bought them. And then the last one being the 32 and 64K cards, memory cards being released based on dynamic RAM technology that was coming out quicker and quicker with higher and higher capacities. And they had problems with those cards being unreliable, and it swamped the service folks that were there to process all the warranty repairs. And add all these problems together, and the company was liquidated on May 14th, 1979. And so with that, let's step back and take a look at these two computers that are in for restoration and see what kind of condition they're in. All right, starting with the one on the left. Keyboard's complete. The outside of the shell of the computer is in really rough shape. The wood panels have dried out. They've been damaged by rodents, so we're going to have a bit of a time cleaning up the outside of this one, but I think this one's going to have the better of the two on the inside, and I'll show you why in a moment. So we can see the complete keyboard. These are a foil and foam keyboard, so they're a separate keyboard from the main logic board. So I think they'll escape most of the rodent damage, but we won't know for sure until we get into it and see. The foam and foil is going to be an easy part. Texelec is in my backyard. They're over on the other side of Fort Worth, so I can order something and get it in a day or so. So I'll already have enough to do one of these keyboards, so I'll just order another set to do the other one. Now this one doesn't have the Sol Terminal Computer logo and stuff up on the riser. It has a keyboard overlay that would normally sit up here at the top. This is for a word processor. Now, if you'll notice, the hard part about this one is spacebar's missing. So this one's going to be a tough one to find. I might have to get with a friend who does a lot of 3D printing and see if he can make me a replica of that key. Now, the Helios drive is in beautiful shape. To the camera sideways, you can get you full view of it, but the buttons are there, the buttons are working, they're not stuck. Everything looks good on it. We'll need to make a cable to hook it up to the computer. It uses a 50-pin flat cable, but I've got plenty of ribbon cable and a Panavice arbor press, so I'll be able to do a standard 50-pin ribbon cable, a twisted pair 50-pin ribbon cable, or a shielded 50-pin ribbon cable, depending on what it requires. So any one of those three will be easy enough to do. Looking at the back is going to be a different story. Now, the one with the dirtier case and that has the full keyboard looks really good. I don't see a lot of corrosion or mouse damage or any issues down here. It looks really good around the video output jack. All the screws to keep the top on look nice and clean. The area around the power switch and the fuse and the power jack all look good. Now, the one that has the nicer looking case is missing the space bar. Ooh, it tells a different story. So we can see the corrosion around the power supply, around the power switch, on the back of the fan here towards the middle. We can see around the power jack. The power jack itself is green. It'll need to be replaced. The bottom shell of the computer is in really rough shape. So I'm a member of Dallas Makerspace. What I will do is take this bottom off and take everything out of it. Take it down there and put it in the media blaster and see if we can get it all cleaned up. We'll have to replace the video output jack, and we can see down in here all the corrosion along the bottom of the case, and the case screws themselves are really in bad shape. So I'm doing this out in my garage just simply because Texas can't decide whether it wants to be warm or cold. So right now it's 43. It was 83, then 43, then 83, then 43. Right now I'm doing it in the garage because, well, I know there's a mouse nest in here, and I've got my shop vac set up with a dual vacuum bag, so we're going to go from there to clean these out and see what we need to do to get them back up and running. Okay, we're down to one on the table, and my voice is going to sound a little muffled because, let's face it, we're going to be working around mouse stuff, so got a filter on, a little mask. But we're going to try and start this off with a quarter to see, because these things were designed to be thumb screws, and you wouldn't tighten them beyond what you could with a coin. A little nervous about what we're going to find. Now this is nice. I didn't need to use any WD-40 or any other like PB Blaster or anything like that. Alright. Oh! Oh, that's much better than I expected. Wow, that's much better than I expected. Okay. I was expecting a lot of mouse nest in here. Take off the mask for now. Let's see what we have in here. Looks like we have a floppy drive controller. This is what I will need to make the 50 pin cable for. Now the odd part's going to be that there's no card eject levers on this, so we're going to have to do this slow and careful. Yep, got a little bit of damage in here. So on top of this one, we've got a lot of, looks like bug frass, not necessarily mouse. Gonna have to look up and see what a couple of these chips are. But this looks like a 3 parallel plus serial I/O by Processor Technology Corp. This one has a name on it. Oh, the floppy drive did too. It was under some bodge wires. Tarbell Electronics. There we go. Got about RAM card. Populated with MM5257. Have to look those up and see what they are. It uses either 5257 or 4404 according to the silk screen here, but this is a Godbout CompuKit product, Econoram 7A, excuse me. And another one. Now this is nice. This is a this is the one that had the word processor portion up above and not the sole piece, and this just goes and confirms, because this system did not have a label on the back, did not have a model number or serial number on it, but it goes to show that this appears to be a Sol 20 and not a 10, because the 20 came with the back plane. And we've got a personality module in here. Pull that one out. $2708 module. Doesn't say which one's in here. Ah, it's Solos. S-O-L-O-S. Solos. Alright, let's get our mask on and get some of the junk in here out.
that was not hinged. Okay, take the mask off, sit over here where it's not around the mess. Alright, so this one looks like it's also been modified to have an NSC 800 microprocessor installed in it instead of the 8080. And it's a nice little system. It's in a whole lot better shape than I thought it was going to be with the way the outside looked. It does have a lot of damage inside, but I don't see a huge amount of damage on the circuit board compared to what I've seen on various arcade game boards. So the beauty of that is I'm going to tear down this some more, and the next video we're going to start the cleanup of the various parts. After that, we'll tear into the other one. Okay, for a recap, let's take a look at what we had in here. We had the Tarbell floppy drive controller. We have the Processor Technology 3 parallel plus serial. Now this one you can see all the bug frass that's on the chips, so this one's going to need some cleanup. And the two memory cards, they're in nice looking shape. Keyboard is pretty filthy. It's going to need some cleanup. New foil and foam. The personality module, I'm happy to say, looks totally unscathed. Maybe a little bit of junk on the bottom on a couple of contacts, but other than that, it's in beautiful shape. The inside, the boards are in nice looking shape. The power supply looks nice on the inside, a lot better than on the outside. There is some rash on the inside of the computer here, and the main logic board on this side looks pretty nice as well. It will need some cleanup, but it's not the nightmare I was expecting. And here, this one is going to be an interesting one to document and try to reverse engineer some of the schematics for the NSC 800 upgrade. It's an interesting CPU swap for an 8080, and looks like, you know, they've got the crystal and everything on here for that. So got a bit of work ahead of us for cleanup and restoration of the case, and cleanup of the boards, testing, rebuild of the keyboard, and we'll see how the case cleans up. And with that, this is the first in a long line. In reviewing the videos, yeah, I need to work on camera placement. So I know that one, but if you have any hints or tips, I'll take them. And with that, I'd like to say thank you for joining me, and let me know what you think of these computers in the comments.